This is a theory model that was created by Linda Alberts. And interesting enough, when I was going through all of the research that she has done in her form itself, I actually was reminded of something that you probably wouldn't expect, and that's reality TV. And I know that sounds like teaching and reality TV are two very different worlds, but in terms of Linda, they're not. They actually kind of overlap. Because in terms of reality TV, without the audience, there's no show. And in terms of misbehavior, their misbehavior will cease to exist if you eliminate the audience. And we'll get back to that point later, but I'm going to show you guys kind of a funny video that's going to harp on what I just told you all about. And it is very funny, so.
There are 4 types of misbehaviors, and I'm not afraid to show you each one. Behavior you're doing appropriate for our classroom code of conduct. Think about it. If you don't encourage your students on a daily basis, we will not be friends. Nothing tastes as sweet as the bad A's, and I have the perfect recipe for them. Hey, do you want to come observe my classroom this week? It'd be so much fun. Sure, I'd love to. Okay, come on. Okay, this is my classroom, but oh my gosh, I have to go to the restroom. Like, can you just watch them? Yeah. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay. Adrian, pay attention. Mary, stop having this pencil. You are so annoying. Pencils belong on the desk.
She should know that students misbehave because they have such a strong desire to belong. I mean, everyone knows that, right?
Don't want to do this. Most people will just punish her, but I know that she just feels excluded from the mainstream classroom. So smart. Good job, Susie. You were doing so good. You too, Ellen. You both are working so hard. Good job. Because I enforce cooperative discipline, I know that encouragement is the most powerful tool we possess. Okay, guys, my turn to do your homework. Susie, what does number 3 of our code of conduct say? Did you see how I enforced the code of conduct? That's a norm in my class. Okay, so you didn't hear this from me, but I heard Susie definitely use the code of conduct. Are you serious? Yeah, look through your window.
As you can see, I had total control of my classroom.
No, she didn't. Susie, come here right now. I swear, Susie is so rude and shaking. It like scares me. Yeah, you seriously need to watch out. Good morning. Good morning. Affection is a gift with no strings attached. I'm so excited. I love school. Susie, what's wrong? I know you can do this. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
I know she's trying to direct my focus away from the real problem, which is her fear of failure, but this isn't my first rodeo.
We are real teachers of corporate discipline.
Okay. So, can anyone tell me some things that they saw in our video that might come into play? Anybody?
What was your question? I'm sorry. That might come into what?
That you think might be some key points within Linda Albert's theory, just based on what they touched upon.
Maybe the act of misbehaving is like an attempt to just redirect the teacher and just take her off track or something.
Right, yep. One of the main points that she really discusses thoroughly is how behind every misbehavior there is some sort of like product that they want to come from that. They want to be successful in one way or another. And there's 4 different types of that, and we'll get to that as we go on. Does anybody notice anything else? What about the teachers in here? What did you observe about their their own behaviors towards the students? Did they get angry? Were they calm and collected? How did they deal with the behaviors at hand?
One of them didn't really deal with behaviors much, was like slams with friends and so on.
Right, so that obviously is a teacher that doesn't understand how the cooperative model works. Whereas the teacher who came in, that is her classroom, she looked like she was appalled that that behavior was going on, and that a fellow educator would do that to her. So let's start. So Linda Albert was a public school teacher. She started in 1968, and she worked in the building within for a few years, so until 72, and then she actually became a behavior specialist. She did that until 1981. And her work is actually influenced by Adler and Dreikers, which I think we'll see as we go throughout. And she has the main concepts of her theory. So before we go to the second clip, sorry guys, she has 3 main points within her theory. This is the heart and soul of her theory. And that is that students feel the need that they need to belong, and this is very important. And students misbehave for a purpose, we've already kind of talked about that. And then students have to have a voice and the say of their own education. So, for example, in the video that we just watched, it talked about having like a code of conduct within your classroom. One of the ways that you can help a student feel like they have a voice is by saying, okay, what are some things that we think should be included in this? What do you think? I think that Dr. Anderson actually does this with us. Whereas she's always asking, hey, like just now, she asked us if we wanted a break or not. She said, do you want 5 minutes? Do you want 10? It's your choice. Choices are very important to Linda Albert and incorporating that into the students' learning. So now we're going to hear it from the lady herself. It'll let me, sorry.
Students and getting into the structure of cooperative discipline is really quite simple. It is based on 3 theoretical concepts. 1, students need to belong. 2, students misbehave for a purpose. Three, students need to have a voice in decisions that affect them. First, students need to belong. Students must that their presence in the classroom makes a difference. Cooperative discipline teachers put this concept into practice with encouragement strategies that not only influence students to choose positive behavior, but also boost student self-esteem.
I think that's the heart and soul of the program. I don't care who they are. Students want to feel that they belong and that somebody cares.
Some students satisfy a need to belong in all the wrong ways and in all the wrong places, like gangs. Many districts are incorporating belonging into the curriculum and culture so that students will satisfy the need to belong in productive rather than antisocial behaviors.
The second concept is that students misbehave for a purpose, to seek attention, to exert power, to get revenge, or to avoid failure. To put this theory into practice, we use intervention strategies.
Okay. So as they're about to go on to say that there are certain intervention strategies that we can implement regardless of the 4 types of behavior. And there's actually specific ones, which we'll get into later on in the presentation, for each type, and she'll break down how they work and also why they're effective. Okay, so the 3 C's. So in order for students to feel like they belong, we need to make sure that they have different sorts of opportunities. And the 3Cs stand for having a student be capable for themselves, their work, and their actions, having them connect with others, so whether that be you, the school community as a whole, with administrators, with their own parents, and we also need to have them contribute. So like I said, going back to the code of conduct, you want to make sure that they're engaged in that process and that they're contributing or putting in what they would like to say or add. Okay, so what is this theory all about? So essentially what she does is she examines the relationships between teachers and students. She thinks that a lot of the misbehavior stems in how a child chooses to relate to us. Sometimes a child will relate to us through, we have similar hobbies, or we both have a cat at home. It could be something as simple as that. But sometimes they'll relate to us in ways in which they want to be your friend, which isn't so bad, but there's always a line within the school system. Developing skills to intervene with misbehavior. So what is the goal of misbehavior? Why are they doing this? How can I redirect this behavior? We want positive relationships between teachers, students, administrators, and their parents. So is this program only for a school setting? No, it's not. You can also use it at home. In fact, some schools do help set up a plan within the school, so a school action plan, and they also have one at home, so a home action plan, in which all of this is implemented so that the student has a more consistent base to come upon. And then, is it only for a specific age group? No, it's not. It can be used in the primary levels, it can be used, sometimes it's going to trickle its way into the upper levels without you even knowing it, and definitely at the high school level. It just has varying degrees of implementation for those. Okay, so why does this theory work? So for teachers, it's going to give you the knowledge and the skills to be able to cope with these misbehaviors and identify the real reason behind them and how you can help them out. So if you have this knowledge, you're going to be able to decrease the amount of disruptions in your classroom, and overall, you're going to foster a better learning environment for your students. In terms of your students, because of that positive learning environment, they're going to have a higher chance of success within your classroom, and not just personally, also within working with groups or in their communities within the school. And it also is effective with at-risk students and special education students, which I think is very important because some of the models we've already seen kind of pushed them to the side or didn't have anything that they specifically said about this. This program is friendly to those students that have those certain needs. And then for parents, parents are going to be more at ease because they know exactly what's expected from their students. They're able to implement it at home, and they're able to kind of have that discourse with their teacher within the same jargon. So behavior is influenced by management. So I'm sure all of you have had a teacher in which you've come into the classroom and it's kind of chaos and ruckus and nothing is really done about it. Or they're just kind of like, okay, everybody be quiet, and then they can just continue. There's no redirection of the behavior. This is what hands-off style is. This will work for me. Hands-off style. So basically, when misbehavior occurs in this kind of classroom, there's no sort of redirectment, and therefore students continue to try and push their limits to see how much they can get away with. Obviously, this is going to be detrimental to the student themselves and also to their peers who are trying to focus on whatever you may be teaching at the time, or even if it's a free period in the reading, they won't be able to focus. For the hands-on style, for this, there is an attempt to redirect the behavior. However, this is more where you get those power struggles coming into play. It's a lot of the teacher being in the position of, you have to obey me, you're going to make them obey. So a lot of this is discipline through like threats or having those consequences that don't really tie in with what actually occurred. And then for hands-joined style, so this is kind of what we want to aim for. It does take a lot of practice, and you're definitely going to want to work on it a lot. And honestly, you could be teaching 30, 40 years, and you could still be working on it, because every year it's a new class, and you're going to have to kind of start over and figure your way around it. So for example, for this, like, say we have Stephen, and he's in with Mrs. Bob. Okay? 1 year, and Mrs. Bob's like, oh, that Stephen never does his work, he's always making noise, he's always interrupting others, whatever. So the following year, he comes to my classroom. Mrs. Bob says, now, Miss Brendan, you have to look out for Stephen because he's really a troublemaker. I'm like, okay. And guess what? He'll come to my classroom and have no issues. Part of the reasons why some students have issues is because we already kind of have, as teachers, have preconceived notions of what the student's like. Maybe a teacher has had an issue, but you know what? Sometimes it's not the student, sometimes it's the management within the classroom. So if Stephen came to me and had no issues, it's more likely that I'm using a hands-joined management style rather than a hands-off style, which is more likely to happen in the first classroom. So for this one, there's a lot of promotion of respect. Students get choices about their own learning. And overall, they're obviously going to be more successful if they feel engaged and connected to what they're learning about and about the process itself. Okay. So there's a lot of different things we're going to be talking about, so I'll try to run through it very quickly because there's a lot. So what they're trying to get at when they misbehave, intervention techniques, how you're going to reinforce that good behavior that you want to see from them, how you're going to create the climate itself of cooperative learning, and how to avoid and diffuse confrontations, which can be difficult because we're all human. We're all going to get very emotional, and we have to be able to take a step back and figure out how we're going to go at it. And also the use of encouragement and how it plays into a cooperative setting. Okay, so what are they trying to achieve with this behavior? So I'm sure all these probably look familiar because we've already had them before come out in our models. So attention, power, revenge, avoidance of failure. Again, clean state approach is key for all of these students. It doesn't matter how they're acting out, what matters is how you approach it, and how you're going to help them be successful. Okay, intervention strategies. This is going to look very overwhelming, and it's because, well, it probably is. I can tell you that if I listed every single intervention strategy you had in here, I wouldn't have enough room on this slide. It would probably take me a good 8 slides because she had so many really great suggestions. I broke them down for you guys though, because obviously we wouldn't have time to go through all of them. So for attention seekers, you want to minimize the attention. So by doing this, maybe you could do an I message, which we've already had come up before. So making sure that your statements aren't placing blame on the student, they're directing them towards the behavior at hand and how they're going to correct it. Clarify the desired behavior. This is something that Linda calls grandma's law, and what it is you do your work, or like work first and then play after. So, for example, you could say, if we finish reading, we'll be able to go out today extra for recess. Or make sure we finish our reading and then we'll go out for recess. You can't make it seem like it's a punishment. So if you have a lesson that you see you don't have enough time for, you can't say, if you don't finish this, we're not going out to recess. Because automatically then you're going to get some resistance from your students. Wording here is very important in terms of this behavior. Okay, so number 3, legitimize behavior. So you want to, maybe you have a student who, let's say, I always have Jake tapping his pencil in classes. And I'll ask him, Jake, please stop tapping your pencil. And he'll keep doing it. Jake, please stop tapping your pencil. There's a few things that you can do to go about it. One, you could either have everybody tap their pencil. Actually, why don't we try that? Everybody go ahead and tap your pencil for like a minute. So by doing this, if you do go the full time, you're gonna have some kids that are like, why are we still doing this? Or the child who is misbehaving is gonna be like, this isn't cool anymore. This was my thing and everybody took it. And it'll eliminate the problem altogether, which is what you want. If you don't want to do it that way, you could always do a lesson on the misbehavior. And I don't mean being like, this kid's doing this, so we're all gonna learn from not doing it. I don't mean it like that. I mean, say we have like a chemistry teacher, and he's always dealing with like his older levels doing spit wads in class. And so we'll always have to remind them, like, no spit wads, over and over and over again. And at that age, you're like, come on, guys, just be. So he decides, okay, so we're going to implement this. You guys, we're going to do a science lesson based on this. So he has them calculate the trajectory of all the spit wads, what kind of materials would influence them being able to fly faster, what kinds of paper, and does this for a 3-week time. And then by the end of it, your class is like, they never want to look at a spit wad again, much less throw it in your classroom. So again, problem solved. That would take a lot of time, but you gotta admit that would be kind of entertaining for you, because they're learning, but they're also learning, subconsciously they're learning, you probably shouldn't do this, which is great. Okay, so number 4, sorry. Do the unexpected. So if you have a student who is misbehaving, some of the things you could do is like turning off the lights. So like say it's very noisy and you just simply do this. Kids are gonna probably, if not freak out, they're gonna be like, oh, Miss Brundage means business, we probably should be quiet. That's exactly what you want. You could be doing a dance. Make a fool of yourself. Your students are your audience all day long, so you gotta mix it up to keep them engaged with you. That's just what it is, especially for the primary levels. You really want them to be on your side. So mixing it up is always important. Okay. Number 5, distract the student. Ask them to do a favor for you. If you see them not paying attention, be like, hey, Billy, can you do a favor? We're going to do this handout next. Can you make sure everybody has this handout for me? Thank you so much. Make sure that you thank them for this behavior, because it's encouraging them not only to behave themselves, but it's also making them feel important because now they have a job. And maybe they'll be like, ooh, you know, I got to help Miss Brundage today. She likes me. Anything that's going to boost their confidence is so great. The other thing that you could do is giving them choices. So right now I see that you guys are all kind of looking tired because we've been here. Do you guys want to keep sitting, or would you like to stand up and take a short break and like shake out the wiggles a little bit? It's up to you. This is your choice. If you want to stand up and shake loose, go ahead. I'll give you like 30 seconds. If you want to stay seated, stay seated. Okay, so that can come in a lot of different forms. You'll see later I'm going to give you guys some more choices to do, but that's always important. If a student feels like they have a choice, they're going to feel like they're important and therefore that they belong within the classroom and the schools. Okay, so number 6, notice appropriate behavior. So this is important because you're not really calling out the student who's misbehaving, but you're still correcting it in a way that's nonverbal. And so, for example, if I had Spencer kind of sleeping, or he's like, I've asked everybody, okay, take out your math textbook, we're going to turn to this page. I could be coming through, checking and seeing how everyone's doing. And maybe I'll say, Tori, thank you so much for having your textbook open and ready and waiting for instruction. But at this point, hopefully Spencer's woken up and been like, oh no, Miss Brundage was over here, I probably should open my math textbook. Okay, and number 7, move the student. So obviously this is easy. You can either move them to what Linda called as a thinking chair. This is like a specific spot in your room, and it's kind of like a rule that all the students know that if a student is in the thinking chair, that they are not to bother them. This is going to be an area that's kind of out of the vision line for the rest of the class, so it's not going to be an instance in which you're like, okay, Gina, please go to the thinking chair for a few minutes. You're not going to have students ridiculing them on their way over there. You want it to be like a very quick thing, only you can see them, so you make sure they're not misbehaving over there. And the behavior itself is nipped in the bud, basically. Okay. So for power and revenge speakers, we're going to go over the classroom volcano, but that's very detailed, so we're going to wait on that one. We'll do that last. And then for avoidance of failure. So these are the students that often it'll look like they're slacking, it'll look like they're off task, they're not doing it. But the reason they're not doing it is because they're not comfortable with the subject matter, or they're afraid they're going to do it wrong, and that's just like paralyzing for them. So for them, what you need to do is you need to make sure you modify how you're instructing them. You should provide outlets for tutoring, whether it be maybe peer tutoring was suggested, or you personally one-on-one them after school. Say, hey, we went over this in class, what do you remember? And making sure that they got all of the information you were giving to them while they were like stricken with fear over what they had to do. You want to encourage them to positively self-talk. So for example, I'm a horrible math student, and I would always be like, I hate math, I suck at math, this is awful. And my mom would always have to say to me, like, you're not horrible at math, you just need to work harder to be better at it. There's nothing wrong with that. And a lot of that is making sure that they feel like they have an environment in which mistakes are okay. That's another big one for Linda, is she wants an environment in which, you even celebrate a child's mistakes, because then they'll feel more comfortable and at ease in your classroom. Okay, so now we're going to go over the volcano. I'm going to give all of you a sheet. You have the choice to fill it in or not. I will tell you that our activity later will be partially based on this. It may help you. But again, if you don't want to fill it out, totally up to you. For your reference only. But I will be giving you a lot of information that won't be up here, because this is all I have for you guys. So you choose. Okay. So for the volcano. So this is called the classroom volcano. And the reasons that Linda decided for it to be a volcano is because volcanoes are natural occurrences, and you can't really prevent them. You can only reduce the impact of them, if that makes sense. So within your classroom, if a child's going to throw a tantrum, there are some things you can do to kind of prevent it, but ultimately they're going to happen. And it's how you react to them that is important. So for the first stage, it's called the rumbling stage. And for this one, what this was tied to was make a graceful exit. So basically what you want to do is you want to recognize the warning signs of a meltdown coming down or the misbehavior at hand. So for example, let's say we have Dawn in my classroom and we're doing a spelling test. And I'm going through and I see that Dawn's not doing her spelling test. I'll say, Dawn, we're on number 6 of her spelling test. You should be with us. And she'll say, you can't make me do the spelling test. I'm like, okay. So a lot of us at that point would be like, oh, really? I'm pretty sure I can make you, but that's the hands-on approach, and that's what we want to try to avoid. Instead, we should try, just give yourself a moment, and just say, you know what, you're right. I can't make you do the spelling test. But we will be doing something later, and you'll need to know these spelling words. So you make your choice. And you kind of leave it open-ended. And sometimes, you know what, maybe the student won't do it. But again, you have to let them. It's kind of like a live and let learn thing. They're going to learn from that eventually. Might not be immediately, but it will work out. And usually if you kind of relinquish your power in that, if you don't allow it to escalate to a power struggle, they might let down their own resistance simply because you didn't react in the way they wanted them to. Because you didn't throw a fit about it, they're going to be like, well, what's the point? I might as well just do it. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, so again, with the choices, if you give them the choice, it shows the student that you respect them as a person. It also makes them feel as though they're equal to you. That there's no sort of path, like you're not above them, they're not below you. You're on the same playing field, you're just trying to work cooperatively. Another step for this is that you want to remove the audience, whatever that may be. So for this one, maybe there's a fight in your hallway, right outside your room. And you go out, there's all these kids in the hallway, and you try to break up the fight, and you're like, okay, cut it out, and they won't. So ultimately, you have to understand that part of the reason the fight is happening is because all these people are watching, and you have to clear that hallway as soon as possible. So maybe you can say to them, okay, if somebody is left in this hallway in 1 minute, you're all getting detention. And yeah, that's kind of an empty threat. You're not really going to do that. But you know what? I bet your butt that all of those students that are watching are going to scatter, and they're going to get out of there. And then you're going to have these 2 kids who've been going at it, like punching each other in the face. Who knows what they're doing? They're going to be like, oh. And then they'll kind of feel silly about it because they don't have people watching. The erection stage. That's number 2 at the top. So for this one, you want to make sure that you're utilizing a timeout system. This is where the thinking chair kind of comes into play. That is one form of a timeout. Another one is that you could maybe say, okay, okay, so maybe we have Rebecca. You say, okay, Rebecca, you can either finish your morning work, or you can go and finish it in Mr. Webster's room. You make the choice. And so sometimes all it takes is for you to say that, and the student will start doing what they were asked to do there initially. But if they don't, and they've already agreed to stay in the classroom and do their work, then you have to send them. You have to make sure that you make a point of saying, okay, we've already spoken about it. You need to go to Mr. Webster's, please, and finish this work. And it has to happen every time. Because if you're not consistent one time, then you're going to get the students who are, oh, well, you let Rebecca stay in here and she didn't do her work. Why do I have to go to Mr. Webster's? It has to be consistent. And there's no second chances for these students. That's the other thing. They will not learn if you're always giving a second chance. Another approach within number 2 is called the Who Squad. and it's WHO. And what this is like you'll become friends, I'm sure, with your other like fellow educators within your classroom. Maybe it's your next door neighbors, maybe it's an administrator across the hall. Wherever you're located, I'm sure you will have discussions with these people. What the Who Squad is essentially all you have to do is like give them kind of a nonverbal across the hallway, like I don't know, make up whatever you want, like hey, help me. And so they'll come in, and without anything, they'll just say who, and you'll point at the student. And usually it's not just one like teacher, it's like a couple teachers that come in and just say like, okay, what's the problem, basically. Typically, if a student sees this, they're either gonna let down their resistance to whatever you ask them to correct, or they'll just go with them, take a moment to take a breather, and then they'll come back to your classroom when they're ready to join the rest of you. And then number 3 is the resolution stage. So this is all about consequences. And for Linda, what she says for consequences is we need to follow the 3 R's, which are related, reasonable, and respectful. And so I'm sure these kind of seem like we've heard them before, because we have. But basically it means that all of our consequences have to tie to one another. They have to be a logical reason for why they're not being able to do something. And part of this is that for our consequences, we need to make sure that we are enforcing them. So like I said, they don't get a second chance. You have to make sure that you're doing it the first time and you're always doing it. Because you'll always have students who say, you know, have a rough life at home, and they're gonna be able to play into you whether you know it or not. Simply by you knowing that they have a rough life at home, you may be like, okay, they have a lot going on. But it can't be that way because only they will suffer. You have to make sure that they have the skills to succeed within their own education. So if you ever have that kind of thing, you have to make sure that you still follow through with the consequence, that it's logical, and that it ties into the behavior. So other things to look out for when we're doing this. Buttering up. Students are very good at complimenting you. I mean, they're all going to bring you an apple on your first day of school. You have to look out for that. That is very endearing. You're going to want to be like, oh, but they're so sweet. Yeah, they are. But they still did something that went against probably your rules within the classroom, that distracted others, distracted themselves, and that's not okay. And we need to make sure they know that. Another one is promises. Students will always make promises to you, like, oh, I will do my work tomorrow. I promise I'll do my work tomorrow if you let me use the computer right now. They're not going to follow through on that promise. I can tell you that right now. But they're going to say they will to see what you will do. Don't fall for that trap. The other one is apologizing or saying I'm sorry. Sometimes there's going to be situations in which you're disciplining them for that they should say I'm sorry for whatever that action may be. However, that does not excuse the action itself. So again, follow through, follow through, follow through. And there's 2 more. The last one is invoking guilt of some kind. So again, this goes back to what I said about knowing that a student has a rough life at home. So they're kind of going to play on you to make them feel like they're the victim. Don't let that happen. You have to remind them, like, you know, these are our rules. This is why we do them. This is why we're doing this with you, so that they know. The other is that, and this is the last one, students will try and form kind of a competition with you about how you discipline in your classroom, which also is not okay. So, for example, if I say, okay, so Jimmy, I see that you've torn pages out of your textbook. So now, from now on, I'm not going to allow you to have your own copy of the textbook. You're going to have to share with your shoulder partner and read together until you can show me that you've responsibly used your textbook. And Jimmy might say, that's not fair. Mr. Chen never makes us share textbooks if we rip pages out. And don't even react to it. Just say, okay, and let it go. Because again, if you show a resistance to the behavior, it's just going to escalate. Okay, so consequences. We went over these, but just in case you missed them, when you want to select them, we have to make sure that they are reasonable, they're related to the misbehavior at hand, they respect the student and their dignity, and that they are reliably enforced. And we just talked about all the things that can come into play. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to keep saying this. You have another choice to make. I'm going to be putting you guys either into groups or you can work individually. students. We have Paul, Mary, and Andrew. They all have their set of behaviors, and they all have their different kinds of behaviors and why they're doing it. What I want you guys to do amongst yourselves is to go through and you're going to identify 2 ways you as a teacher can handle it. One being preventative, if you can think of any, and the other an intervention, or if you only have 2 interventions, that's fine. Just make sure you have 2 points. And then how maybe you would discipline the student. So making sure that those are logical disciplinary moves. Okay, so are we in groups? Are we alone? Go ahead and take 30 seconds to figure it out.
Hey guys, want to do a group?
Yeah.
Make sure you're sitting with your group members if you're in a group.
But mine's pretty hard.
You colored yours?
Okay, are we all set? Okay, so I'm going to come around and give everybody their student. I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on it together. Take any notes you would like. Are you all guys at 3?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 minutes.
Okay. You are teaching a lesson in American history. You hand out a worksheet on vocabulary for chapter 4. While a student has constantly been the one to talk during a lesson, distracts his classmates, and tells them not to obey your rules, tells you that he is not going to complete the worksheet, and pushes it far away. You tell him that he has to finish because it'll be graded, and he responds by saying you can't make him do it.
You can't make him do it?
Yeah. Can't make him do it. So he says you can't make him do it.
So what's the definition of misbehavior?
So, wait, what do we have to do?
It's to identify the
The
type
type.
of misbehavior. 2 ways a teacher can handle it.
The type? Like,
So he's,
power? I don't understand the question.
yeah, it's power struggle.
Power struggle. Okay.
Because he's just saying that she can't be good.
He's just testing her.
Yeah, exactly.
Seeing how far I can go.
It's a choice.
And then what are 2?
Wait, is it? So, preventative intervention. So, why would we
Tell
say
him
intervention? Because you
intervention.
can't really prevent it. It's already happening.
So tell him you'll need this eventually. You'll need it in the future.
Well, yeah, you need it in the future, but
Alright,
you
so
can
we
choose
should
not
use
to
1
do
more
it
minute to
or
kind
you
of
want
collect
to.
your thoughts and prepare your answer as a
Sure,
group.
but your choice. And then if he continues to not, then what do you do? Send him off, yo. Later. Principal. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I know. But I don't know. So none of the theory models have have harmony to it. You know, like it's all about taking care of your own classroom. But what if they're really not distracting like the other students? Like,
Yeah. That's what I mean.
like why
Like,
keep them in there if they're just gonna keep doing it?
especially if they're a repeat offender that just continues to do it like every day. I'm not doing
In old
it.
school, if you were like that, you
You're
just get
out.
sent to like a room with these 2 other teachers.
Yeah, like in
And they would just
school.
like keep you on task.
Yeah.
But it was like a chill room, so like,
Wow.
yeah, it
People
was,
wanted to go?
like I liked going because I liked the teachers there. But,
So you get to people with
well, I
like,
wouldn't even. I'd get to the point where I'm just like, can I just go to that room
but
and
that's,
do my work?
but that's what I mean, like, kids probably wouldn't care if they misbehaved, they'd be like, alright, it's kind of what I wanted to
Plus
do.
they had,
Yeah,
they
they
had
don't
peanut
wanna
butter and
do it.
toast in there, so that was
What they have?
peanut butter and toast.
I love that.
Alright, so we're all gonna go around and we're gonna share, okay? Why don't we start with the groups that have Andrew? I know you guys have 2, so it's okay. Why don't you tell me what you think the motivation behind the misbehavior was, and then how you would handle it? Tammy.
So, Katie and I had Andrew, and he's being disruptive by making funny noises during a lesson. So, he wants attention.
Okay.
He wants attention. And our preventative action was to make sure that we have a rule in place to not make noises.
Okay.
Or not to not be disruptive and then have real consequences. Because obviously just disruptive in the class, and then saying, oh, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that.
Right.
Yeah. And then we had 3 ideas for when it does happen to fix the issue. Is to have everyone make funny noise for 1 minute, like you demonstrated. To take him aside and talk to him one-on-one about his behavior and how he can express himself in a better, more productive way. Or try what Katie thought of giving him a fidget toy to use so that he gets an outlet for that, for the entertainment team.
Right. Anybody else have the Andrew group?
Yeah, well, we said also like having like a timeout corner, or depending on the grade, like having a student work in the hall.
Right. Okay. What I had down here from just personally for myself is another one you want to make sure you utilize is your nonverbal communication. So a lot of times all this is going to happen right when you're in the middle of a lesson. You're going to be distracting others. So even if it's just like a signal that they know you mean business, like, and maybe only they will see it, but that's all that matters. If then it doesn't work, you guys did have a good suggestion with having everybody make a noise. Another thing you could do is giving like a specific praise to a student right near them. So say Cammy's off task making the noise, I'm praising Katie. Katie, thank you so much for sitting quietly and waiting for instruction. Okay. Who had Mary? Okay, go ahead and share with me. Maybe we'll just do one reason from each group so it goes a little bit.
I don't really know why she's not working. She just probably doesn't want to fail the task, I guess. So she comes on to work and throws on the ground, refuses to do it, so she doesn't want to do it. I'm not sure how to handle this.
Okay.
Not in one of those.
Alright. Well, I'll give you guys a suggestion. So one way you could do it is making sure you're observing their language. So, for example, if she said, I can't do this, you have to make sure you're redirecting them to, yes, you can, we just need to practice. Or something along those lines so that they feel like they have a confidence boost a little bit, and we'll get them through the exercise itself. What did you have, Mackenzie?
I put that tell the student that it's her choice to do it or not, but she'll need to complete it for tomorrow and for future assignments.
That's perfect. Yeah. Okay, and let's do the last one. Let's go over Paul now. Reason behind misbehavior and how you handle it.
So Paul constantly talks out during lessons. He distracts his classmates and tells them not to obey the rules. And then the teacher wants him to complete a worksheet and he pushes it away. So we said that it's like a power struggle. He's testing to see how far he can push. And we said we would intervene by just telling him, you know, you'll need this in the future, but it's your choice. You know, if you don't want to do it, then yeah.
And for that one especially, like, what was something that you could use from your classroom volcano for that?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Sorry. What was an example maybe from the classroom volcano? Because that one's really aimed towards students who are revenge seeking and embarrassing.
Well, I think I have a resolution stage from that. I don't know how I can diffuse it right in the moment, but maybe telling him, like, setting him aside, not like timeout, but alright, how about you just do this then at your own pace over here, and you can complete it when you...
So altering...
Yeah, just like changing the setting and the way he sees his assignment, but still having him do it, and maybe tell him he can have a little more time at home, but how about you get half of it done here? Something like that.
Yeah, that is perfect. Okay, so we're gonna go on now. I'm gonna try it over here. Okay, so when we notice behaviors that we want our students to do, so that quote unquote good behavior, desirable behaviors you want to continue them doing. This could either be through like procedures or rules. Linda always tries to say to incorporate the 5 A's. So that means that you're accepting of the students, you're giving them all good attention, and not just when they're misbehaving. You know, you're making sure that they feel cared for from the second they walk in the room. Another is appreciating them, giving them daily affirmations about what they can do and how well they're doing in your classroom. and then affection. And as we heard in the video, all of you kind of chuckled a little bit, but this was an actual quote in the book, is that affection is a gift without strings attached. Okay. I just realized I missed one point on my classroom volcano. During the rumble stage, sorry to backtrack you guys, you might want to write this down. During the rumbling stage, one of the things she does encourage is for you to greet your students at the door. This ties into the 5 A's. Because what you can do just from that, if you're able to get down, okay, I made sure that I checked in with this student today. They're either, you'll be able to sense their mood right away. Like maybe they're having an off day. You'll know as soon as they come in the classroom. So you can already be thinking in your mind, okay, this could be a bad day for Katie, so-and-so, and already kind of have a plan of action. Okay, how to diffuse and avoid confrontation. So we discussed this a little bit already, but you really want to make sure you're focusing on the behavior itself, not the student. So again, having that clean slate, not only from day to day, but from year to year, regardless of what your coworkers have told you about a student. You want to make sure you're taking charge of their negative emotions. So anytime they're saying, I can't, or saying horrible things about themselves, you want to redirect that and say, you can do this, you can do this, good things about them, so that they feel empowered, basically. You want to avoid escalating the situation. This is not easy. This is probably the biggest one that's going to take practice. Because all of us are going to have, we have a rough day on the way to school. Spill your coffee on yourself, you have a flat tire, it's snowing, anything to go wrong. And then you go to class and then you have to teach all day, in which you're in a position in which you kind of have to, multi-manage a million different things, including your students. So we really need to make sure that even if they're misbehaving, again, thinking about why are they doing this? And taking a step back and collecting yourself. If you can't address the behavior at the time, and I don't mean by redirecting it, I mean by being able to speak with them at that time. Make sure that you do follow up with them about that behavior so that they know it's not acceptable and that you're going to be keeping track of how they're doing. Discuss behavior later, I just kind of led into that. Make sure you touch base with them. My mentor student or teacher always makes sure that if her students do get in trouble throughout her disciplinary plan, that she meets one-on-one with them during recess time and says, hey, what's going on? And sometimes they'll find out things you didn't even know. But make sure that you let them open up to you, do not cry, because then they might shut down even more. And the last one, allow students to save face. So in the book, we had an example of Sandra, and she's walking circles around the classroom. And so they asked her, please come sit down. And so she goes and sits, but she's muttering under her breath. And so in the example, the teacher said, what did you say? Because I'm sure they're just angry that she didn't just sit down quietly. And so she goes, I was just thinking out loud, is that really a problem? So as you can see, the situation escalated. Make sure that, if you redirect them, if they do, let it go. If you're at a business meeting, or if you're at work and you're having a meeting with all of your team, and your boss is like, okay, you guys have to do this paperwork, all this needs to be done to me by this day. I'm sure all of you are going to be like, oh man, it's natural. It's what's going to happen. The kids have to release that energy somehow, and I would rather have it be that way than having it escalate and disturbing the whole classroom, or even the school, depending on that. Okay. And then fostering a cooperative climate. Make sure you establish your code of conduct and that you're not only following it yourself, but you're making sure that you're not giving second chances to your students. Make sure that we're following this and that you're following up with them every day when they don't. And then conflict resolution. Being able to discuss problems with your students using your words and not resorting to violence or other inappropriate ways of handling it. Okay, how to use encouragement. Again, we have our 3 C's. We have an environment where it's okay to make mistakes. We want to select learning environments that are achievable for all of our students so that nobody feels like they're behind and then causing them to resist. We want to be accepting of all their students regardless of past behavior, so again, clean slate. We want to give them attention in good ways, so by actively listening and being interested in their hobbies or what they do outside of school, and showing them praise, and by that I mean giving them appreciation. And then we want them to involve them in the maintenance of the learning environment. Hold some class meetings. See what's working for them and what's not working, and make sure you compromise with them. because it's not just your classroom, it's their learning environment. And at the end of the day, you need to make sure that there's a good mesh between the two. And then always ask for their suggestions about things. And yes, sometimes you'll get kids that goof around with this, but some of them will take it seriously and it will impact the whole class. So pros or cons. Thank you so much for all of you listening this whole time. It's been very long. So pros. So I really like that it did take into account students with special needs, students who maybe being pulled out of your classroom for certain subjects that are going to miss things. It does overarch for all students of all types, so I think that's great. It also provides students with skills that they're going to use not just during their schooling years, but in their life. That conflict resolution is so important, and they're going to continue to use it as long as you model them for them correctly and hold them accountable. I also love that it examines the motivations behind behaviors, because I feel like a lot of the time our initial instinct is just to be angry without any kind of thought about it. Make sure you're releasing. Do not have this complex where they're going to obey me because I'm the teacher, because it's never going to work out in this way. Okay, so cons. I definitely see some of the interventions creating kind of some chaos. So maybe like having everybody make a noise, like I could see that escalating quickly. But again, just make sure you have other kind of management tools, I guess, in hand. So like you have something that they know to be quiet when you do like this or something. So that's all you have to do, and then you'll regain them again. And still have them have that happen. The Who Squad, I thought maybe, I don't know how that would work, because first of all of you were teaching at the same time. Nobody's going to have time to come into your classroom and be like, you know, students acting up, because then they're going to have students in their own class acting up. So I don't know how that would work so much. I personally was like, that's a little crazy, but we'll talk about it. Again, a con challenges educators not to respond in emotional, reactive ways. So I only said this was a con because it takes so much practice. There's going to be some people that are going to approach this and be like, you know what, it's not worth the work, and that's fine. Everybody has their own method, but I think in the long run, if you put the work in, it'll be worth it for you and your students. And again, same thing, ongoing investment. Every year is going to be a clean slate. You're going to have to restart over again. That was my sources. Does anybody have any questions? Tori.
Does she say anything about a student who really doesn't respond to any calm method of discipline?